right. Well, let's go ahead and get started, folks. Thank you so much for joining. As I'd stated in my invitation, I worked at GE. I worked at United Technologies. I have a lot of prior colleagues who I was close with reach out over this past several years to ask me about what we were doing in real estate investing. And I thought, hey, what better way to get the word out and educate folks than to reach out to the network of folks that I've worked with in the past and try to spread the education. I think even today, my wife Emily and I are very involved in real estate, but we're learning all the time. And so that's what this is. It's an opportunity to learn something different. Maybe some folks on the webinar here are future real estate moguls. And so this is your chance to jump in and learn from me. Me and my wife have been doing it for about 10 years now. And so I want to make this real interactive, right? We've got a group, we've got an audience tonight. I think we can definitely make this an intimate setting. So I'm gonna go through a presentation here. I'd like to present here for about 30 minutes or so. I know it's the evening time, it's family time, so would love to do some Q&A throughout the presentation. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question if it comes to you. And we can also do Q&A at the end. But I'm super passionate about this. And so I'm really excited to take everybody on a quick journey on the real estate investing model, what it's done for my wife and I, and how we accomplished it, the nuts and bolts behind it, and how you can apply it, right? Because that's the most important part. So I'm going to pull up a pitch here and share my screen. All right. To kick things off, what I'd like to do is just start with a short story from the highest level, why I got involved in real estate investing. And hopefully it can act as kind of a, inspiration or something to think about as you think about your own financial future, what you're involved in today, investments wise. But really, for me, it started with my father. My father was a 35-year corporate veteran in the automotive space, worked for Ford Motor Company for pretty much his entire career. And, when I was growing up, he was very keen on me getting a good education, getting a good job. But he also was very keen on ensuring that, me and my family were set up for financial success. From a early age, he helped me with budgets, spreadsheets. I can remember going off to college with, a budget spreadsheet. Hey, here's what you spend, here's what you make. And even when I took my first, professional job out of college, he was right there helping with all that. The one interesting thing about that, though, and the reason I bring my dad up in this story is because although he was a longtime corporate guy, he had me read a book by Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Some of you may have read this book. If you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. It is a mindset book. It's really all about lifestyle investing and how you can create a lifestyle for yourself based on what you get involved with investing wise. And it hits on, it hits on the difference, between being an investor and being, a wage worker, right? Working for a wage or working for a salary. And so that was very, very key early on for me. And I'd say the other very, very pivotal item that my father helped me with in these early budgeting spreadsheets was he would add a piece of real estate every year. He'd help me put together like a 10-year financial plan, and he'd add a piece of real estate to that plan every year. And it was simple. It was, $150,000 house that you would rent out for $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month. And that was when I observed that in the spreadsheet, it was so powerful, because what really happened was, after about 10 years of buying one house per year, something that, today for me seems pretty achievable. You reach a point where you're, through appreciation and cash flow and tax benefits, you're almost making as much money every year as I was in my first job. So really, the light bulb really went off at that point, and I have to thank my father for that, because that I really wouldn't have the impetus to get into real estate if it hadn't been for that. So I wanted to start there at a high level, just from a mindset perspective, to just think about even the simplest notion of a budget spreadsheet, simple income and expenses, and one rent house per year, how that can really, shift your mindset and make you think a little bit. So here we are. I decided to publish a webinar series so that we could educate each other on real estate investing and the benefits that you and your family can have through getting into real estate. This first presentation is really laying the groundwork, right? It's a mindset presentation. I'm going to show some numbers, high-level numbers, going to share some things about our experience with real estate, but by and large, this is just to get a picture of what's possible. Believe me, I personally invited everybody that's attending this webinar, whether they're attending live or going to watch the recording. And I know I've worked with each of you. Everybody's fully capable. Nothing in this presentation or the ones that follow is rocket science. And so I'm super excited to share this stuff with you guys. As a reminder, and as I stated before, this is education based, right? I'm not here to present a specific deal. I'm not going to ask anybody for money after the presentation. We're not taking investments during this presentation. So you can rest easy to know that this is just educational in nature. It's not meant to promote anything specific. And here's the schedule. So I wanted to show this early to kind of give everybody a flavor of what we're going to be reviewing over the next several weeks. We're going to do it weekly. I am going to record the sessions. So, if something comes up for you and you really want to see, say, the presentation on mortgage note investing or multifamily investing, then mark your calendars, get in touch with me, or check out LinkedIn for the recording links. But this is the high level schedule. We're going to basically, like I said, do a foundational presentation tonight, and then I'll dive into some very more specific investing technical items in the coming weeks. It's going to be really, really good, and I guarantee everybody's going to walk away with some inspiration and absolutely learning something. So. Well, I talked about, why I had the inspiration, the initial reasoning to get into real estate, why I got interested initially through my father and him helping to educate me. But now that I've been in it for 10 years, something that has become extremely obvious to me. And, if you watch the news, you may see this stuff too. But not a lot of folks who are nearing retirement age are prepared for that period of their lives financially. It's difficult to say, most of us are, 10, 15, 20 years away from this point. So it's 20 years away. It's a problem for tomorrow, right? I'll worry about that next week. But it's a significant problem, right? People all the time are having to continue their careers, stay in jobs, and don't have any ability to enjoy the latter half of their life away from work because they haven't planned for it, right? And on top of that, folks who are working today, supporting families, feel the tightening, okay? A dozen eggs was $3.50 5 years ago. Now it's like $6. Bacon. Bacon was like $4 a pack. Now it's like 9. Things are much more expensive these days. You and your family could be earning a very handsome living, and you'll notice the squeeze, right? I notice the squeeze. It's amazing how living expenses have adjusted, right? And so retirement, or maybe not there yet. However, these are things that we have to think about, right? These are things that your investing can help you with, if it's done mindfully, right? So I'll do a little introduction here. I absolutely know most everybody that I invited, so I don't necessarily need a huge introduction, but most everybody who's on the presentation tonight and who I invited, I've worked with before in some capacity, or my wife Emily has worked with before. We spent the first 10 years or so of our careers working in engineering operations, mostly at GE. And so had just an absolutely fabulous experience working for the General. In 2013, we relocated to Texas and started investing in single family homes. So what my father taught me indirectly through a spreadsheet activity, we put into action. We started, purchasing rental properties, and, the properties that weren't livable, we would renovate and, resell and make some money. So that's what we did early on. We eventually diversified into multifamily investing, large group purchases, 150 units and up. And today we do a lot of mentoring, teaching. We're in a large multifamily investing group that I'm a coach in. And Emily is a real estate agent with Keller Williams, and she does a lot of wealth coaching through that organization. So we simply take what we have executed and learned over the past decade and sharing it with others. It's a really good win-win. And we live in Fort Worth, Texas. So that's where we do a lot of our business too. A lot of our investing activities down here in the Sun Belt. A little bit about our company, just to kind of talk about what we do. Obviously, we're very involved in the investing side of real estate. I mentioned we do a lot of group purchases of multifamily apartment complexes, apartment communities I wouldn't ordinarily be able to purchase on my own. And so we work with a lot of investors, and that's a large part of our business today is apartment group purchases with private investors. And so we are the deal architects, right? We go out and put the deals together, get it under contract, and then if it's a deal that an investor likes and meets their criteria, that they might join us in the investment. And so, kind of our value and our mission is adding that empowerment for folks to help build their generational wealth. It's extremely, as I mentioned before in the prior slides, with retirement savings and inflation, it tends to be a very real thing. And so the folks that we work with, just enjoy having the ability to grow their wealth alongside with us. And really today, the three things that we focus on: multifamily apartment communities, commercial investments such like triple net lease space and things of that nature, multi-tenant, and also mortgage note investing. So purchasing mortgage notes and becoming the bank. We are going to get really deep on all these items over the coming weeks. I'll pretty much have a presentation for each one. So, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what A&E Investments does, Adam and Emily Investments, just so you kind of get a feel for what our business focuses on. This part of the presentation, I want to just kind of set a framework for what real estate investing can do for a portfolio, what these type of investments return historically, and what your expectations might be if, say, this year, next year, you said, yes, this is something I really want to get involved in. This is what, this is kind of how you could relate it to your portfolio. But right off the top, and I think a lot of us are in this boat, right? Especially, having company 401k, or, learning how to invest from our upbringing, from our parents. You might do some stock market investing or some fund investing, things like that. And so I wanted to pull some data to show, hey, if I'm a real estate investor, the S&P, say you're in a mutual fund, S&P 500, this is what I'm, comparing to. This is, if I'm investing in real estate, well, then this is another option out there, the stock market. Just for this presentation purposes, I pulled this data without any sort of preconceived notion, but right around 7%, 6.8% is the non-inflation adjusted average of the S&P 500 over the past 20 or so years. So if you invested 100 grand in the year 2000, you'd have about 400 in 2020. Okay. And there it is. So for those of us who say, you know what, stocks, bonds, mutual funds is the way that, I'm going to build, my portfolio, my family's wealth. I'm not saying you started in the year 2000, but this is just a representative 20-year time frame of data that shows, hey, if you set it and forget it, here's kind of where your portfolio might be today. And then the tagline here of, hey, what is the significance of looking at something like this? And I even asked myself that as I was kind of putting together the presentation, like, hey, why, why is this interesting? Well, for me, it's interesting because today, and we might, here on the presentation, we might be different ages, but today I'm, 20 years, in 20 years, I'd like to be retired. I'd like to be enjoying my retirement years. Let's see, 30, 40, 60 years old, right? That'd be a good time to start planning retirement. And so these numbers, have a correlation to that, right? What I think is important to realize is there are other options out there, right? There, some folks call it alternative investments, it's real estate-based investments. But let me just show you some numbers. And this is purely real data. This is passive silent investing, specifically for this chart in multifamily apartments, right? And I take a correlation back to the slide from before because it's what I have to compare to, right? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds. My father taught me to buy a rent house every year, and that was even outside his comfort zone because the man's never owned any rental real estate in his life. Okay. I grew up in a household where we invested in, traditional investment vehicles, right? GE stock. But here's what we've experienced the past several years in multifamily investing. I'll say it's a lot higher returns, right? And we'll get into the reasons why, but take $120,000 invested annually for 3 years, 2017, 18, and 19. So $360,000. And over a period of about 5 years through 2022, that $360,000 grew to about $680,000. And that is silent passive investing, meaning, I'm just passively, silently investing in a real estate asset, a multifamily apartment community, and watching my money grow. Okay. And the chart on the right, just to kind of explain that, the 18, 19, 20, and 21, some of the small dollar amounts you see there is like cash flow returns. Tenants pay rent, the rent flows through, pays the bills, and then the leftover gets paid out to the investors. And then in 2022, those deals that we bought sold. And that was the profit, the back end profit of the sale. And so if you, just from a high level, and again, comparing between what I used to know as a primary investment vehicle versus what I do today, If you were to take that same $100,000 that we said you invested back in 2020, if you were to do that in these multifamily investments for 20 years and you reinvested your proceeds every 5 years, say you had just like this example, say you bought deals and they sold every 5 years, that 100,000 would turn into 1.8 million bucks. And quite frankly, that's using pretty conservative underwriting techniques, safe investments, and that's, markedly better. I mean, it's in a different ballpark than the type of investing that at least I was brought up doing, right? The mutual fund investing where we rely on the market to, feed our wealth machine up through retirement. So just another way to think, different results, right? And this is just kind of based on my experience, mine and my wife Emily's experience the past 5 years in multifamily alone. And we'll learn a lot more about multifamily in the coming weeks. So, I think to myself, okay, I have had a lot of phone calls with folks who've wanted to get into the business. And what is it? What is it that eventually, holds them back? And it's time, right? It's hey, working a full-time job, have a family, and it's just, I'm not going to go out looking at real estate all day, right? Making offers on homes and things like that. And so that's just know it's a shared challenge, right? That's one of the toughest things about getting into real estate. It's new. And, a lot of folks think, hey, well, I've got to make a lot of time for it, right? And I'm going to show you over the next couple of weeks that there's some great ways to get into the business that don't take a whole lot of time. So I'm excited to get into those details. But at the end of the day, and this is so true, and it applies, this kind of goes back to the beginning of the presentation about preparing for retirement years. Well, if the money's not generating itself, right? As Warren says, while you sleep, if you're not creating income while you sleep, then you're going to just continue to work. You really will, right? You're putting a lot of eggs in the basket of hope, hoping that the nest egg is large enough when you retire. But why not make that almost more than a guarantee, right? So let's walk, I talked a little bit about the multifamily example. I'm going to walk through the next couple slides. We're just going to go from day one. I want to do a history lesson on Adam and Emily's real estate journey, to share the story. Hopefully it's somewhat of an inspiration to kind of, if you've wanted to get into real estate investing, maybe this is the presentation that kicks it into gear. And I want to help with that. And I just want to show you some real numbers and show you what is possible. So 2013, we kind of had a major mindset shift, right? GE Aviation, or, previously Aviation, now GE Aerospace, sold off a division of our business on the West Coast. And we ended up moving to Texas. And that's when we got into real estate investing, kind of taking our first dive. And you can see we had about $300,000 of investable net worth, to play around with. And so we made our first investment. Small house, 2-bedroom house, Fort Worth, Texas, when you could buy homes for under $100,000. And we proved the concept, right? Made $15,000 over a couple months. And that was exciting, right? You take a dive into the most unknown world and you end up not losing $60,000. So we felt pretty good. And then you rinse and repeat. You've learned, and then you do it over again. We bought a second investment property. This one happened to be what we like to call buy and hold, long-term hold, if you will. We owned it for 9 years. And it was just it was a good experience. It was a screaming deal, good investment, and we learned a lot through that. Made some decent returns and learned a lot. Held it for almost 10 years. And so what do? You do it again, right? You do it, you learn, you rinse and repeat, right? You can see over time, you learn how to monetize each of the investments. So those are the first two. Emily and I eventually went on to do about 25 single family real estate transactions. So, definitely not volume buyers by the standard of some real estate investors, but, we got our feet wet in the single family space and did all right. 2017 rolls around and we jump into the world of multifamily investing. Single family investing was a job. It was like having a second job. Okay. And it was a great experience, but we were looking for something more sophisticated. And as it goes, right, as you guys are here this evening on a webinar learning about real estate, we attended an event on multifamily investing and learned about how to do that type of investing. And so we made a full switch in 2017 and ended up doing two deals in pretty quick succession in 2018 and 2019. So our first one is up there, the Cooper Park Apartments. It was a 180 unit property right here in Dallas, Fort Worth. And yeah, again, nominal returns, not a bad hold period, nice short hold period. We invested 50,000. We improved the value of the property and it sold and we made 20,000 bucks. Right. So, again, kind of going back to that slide earlier where you could turn $100,000 into 1.8 million over 20 years. Well, this type of return here, 16% per year, that'll get you there. Right. Rinse and repeat, do it again. So we have a second deal. It's another large apartment community in Dallas, Texas, 208 units. And again, invested $50,000. And this one just happened to be a home run. Not that we ever expect them to be this good, but this one happened to be really good. Sold it after about 3 years and, better than doubled our money. So 40-year average return annually. Don't see a lot of those in the portfolio, but hey, we'll take it, right? It was a good little deal and you continue to do it. And so to date, my wife and I have invested in about 25 multifamily properties, similar investment amounts. And we enjoy similar returns, right? I'd say, typically anywhere between that 16 and 20% annually. 2022 rolls around. Make another shift, right? Constantly learning, getting into new things. Again, a real estate investment vehicle that I am really, really excited to teach everybody here about. And this will be, I think it's the second week in October that I have this planned for, but investing in mortgage notes. Yes, you can actually purchase a mortgage note on a home. You can buy a mortgage note from a lender on a home and become the bank, right? So the homeowner goes from paying the bank to paying you, the new bank. And it's a very active space. It's a very, very active real estate investing space. And so we've done a handful of these over the past year. And these are a couple of the first ones we did. You can see there's even small dollar amount mortgage notes that you can get into. We invested $16,000 in this one in Oklahoma City on this home, and it returns $2,500 a year. So 15% cash return. And second one we bought, San Antonio, you can see $45,000 invested for $6,000 a year. So monthly income, this part of our portfolio is our cash flow income. It helps pay the bills, so to speak. Some of the multifamily deals you invest in for the longer term to get a longer term return, and the mortgage notes you get paid every month because you're the bank. And so I'm just really, really excited about presenting this to everybody here, because I think it's a really, really interesting mindset shift on how you can put your money to work and get a monthly return. Okay, so just kind of in summary, for Emily and I, 2023, we're going to continue to diversify and get more of our portfolio over into mortgage notes and kind of expand a little bit. We're still very active in the multifamily space. That's a big part of our role. But over the past 10 years, we've done just about 5 real estate deals a year. It's not I think for anyone who jumps into this space, you'll realize that's not by any means huge volume at all, right? There's companies out there that are buying that many real estate deals a day. And we've increased our net worth pretty substantially through the acquisition, the ownership, and renovation of real estate assets. And it's a reason why I'm super passionate about the space and love to teach about it and include people in it. And to that point, especially in our multifamily business, where, like I said, I can't personally go out and buy a 200 unit apartment community. I don't have $40 million sitting in the bank, right? So we do include investors in our real estate deals. And we've had the privilege of helping just about 1,000 investors who we're very close with get into their first real estate deal. And a lot of folks have continued with us. Looking at the next 10 years, more of the same, but we are going to start moving some of our portfolio over to mortgage notes, get a little bit more active there, and focus a little bit more in the commercial space. Here in North Texas, commercial space, warehousing, triple net lease, multi-tenant, it is really blowing up. It is huge. And we've invested as passive investors, meaning I'm a silent investor. I don't, I don't come up with the deal. I just wire my funds over to the main lead investor. We've invested passively in a handful of these commercial deals over the past several years, and they're great. It's great cash flow. It's great equity appreciation, and it's taking advantage of the microeconomic phenomenon we've got going on here in North Texas. So again, rinse and repeat. I think when you jump into your first real estate deal, that's all it usually takes, right? You jump in, you experience it, you realize, wow, that was good, learned a lot. And from there, you just kind of rinse and repeat. You just continue to learn, and you do it over and over again. You get good at it. And so again, I'm just really excited to get this group more and more engaged in it and be available to help with the launching pad, so to speak. Something that's really important to realize, and looking back over the past 10 years as I was coming up with those stats and putting it on paper, would have never guessed it. Absolutely never guessed it. You don't have a really good grasp on exactly what you're going to accomplish in 10 years. And I guarantee this, if you were to ask yourself, hey, did I know I'd be doing, what I'm doing today 10 years ago? Everybody here in the presentation would absolutely say no, right? You just don't have a good grasp on it. You tend to not give yourself enough credit. You underestimate what you can do in 10 years. We always generally overestimate what we can do in 1 year, and we don't give ourselves enough credit for the 10-year goal. So keep that in mind, right? When you're looking, some folks are going to see these webinar presentations and say, man, I am so in, and don't need to boil the ocean. But definitely having a plan is phenomenal. If you can put one together for 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years. So it kind of, in closing a little bit, I've got a couple more slides here. I want to really ramp off here and talk about a little bit more where we're going with this webinar series. Real estate gives you choices, okay? And we all have a choice, right? What does my lifestyle look like, and what do I want it to look like? Maybe it's not today's lifestyle. Maybe it's more of a retirement thing. Maybe we want more security for our family's generational wealth plan, right? Maybe we just want to make sure that our retirement's guaranteed. Do you have control over your current portfolio? What is currently growing your wealth? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how much control do you have over it? Can you actually control the things that you invest in? And then, do you know what the number is? Do you know what type of wealth plan you want for your family? Many of us have kids, right? So some of our kids have kids. And so what does that plan look like? These are all things that are so easy to push off to next week, but they have absolutely critical reasoning today. And so I really urge us to kind of think about these things. What's the lifestyle look like today, or where you're going with it? Do you have control over what your investments are today? And do you have a plan? Okay. Because I know when we invest in real estate, we're thinking about these things. We have absolute focus on these things. It's the reason we do the investments we do. And so to kind of complete the circle a bit, how does real estate help us with this? And why would I want real estate to be part of that equation? Well, it helps us answer these concerns that we should be looking at. So real estate's it's a touch and feel investment, right? I can go to the properties. I can see them. I can visit with the folks that work at the properties, or I can visit the tenant, right? I can know who that person is. I know who's paying the rent. It's a tangible touch and feel asset. You have control over it. Or, in the case of being, say, a passive investor in a multifamily apartment, I control the people that I invest with. I control the markets that I choose the market that I invest in. If there's an issue with my investment, I know the phone number of the person that I sent my money to, right? These are all elements of control. Financial aspects of real estate are, you could argue almost second to none. Cash flow, capital gains appreciation, tax benefits, leverage. You could throw a bunch of other things into this category, right? It's one of the reasons why when you compare, say, traditional investing, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, to real estate, it's the reason why the numbers are so starkly different, right? It's the reason why you could become a multi-millionaire investing in real estate, is because of these financial items that we're going to learn a lot about over the coming weeks. And then again, real estate is an excellent vehicle to build a generational wealth plan around. It just absolutely is. From tax planning through portfolio and estate planning, it just makes a great thing to teach your kids about investing and things like that. So, when I I'm making these charts, I'm thinking, wow, why real estate? And this is really it, right? This is the real deal. And it goes further than that, right? I mentioned this presentation is to whet the appetite, to get us excited, to set the groundwork, and to frame in the mindset, right? We want to be excited about this. And so the coming weeks, we are going to dive 3 levels deeper, right? We're going to look at the technical aspect of the investment vehicles, how we can use them to our advantage, what type of level of control we have as an investor. And as kind of a look around the corner here, a sneak peek, we're going to go through a case study on a deal that we bought back in 2019 and have since sold. It's a multifamily apartment community in Dallas. And we're going to talk about how these pillars here, these financial pillars, help to create that financial gain, right? Help to create that generational wealth plan. Put the puzzle pieces together to show, hey, the different elements of the real estate investment, this is how it's working in my favor as an investor. And I'm super stoked to go through all of this, because it's all real numbers. It's the real deal. In closing, I'm going to do a quick case study here, and I'm going to do this for each of the webinar presentations, just to go through some real numbers. Again, we all understand the notion that, hey, you have to be a smart investor, you have to understand the deals you're getting into, and so that's the element of control that I talked about earlier, right? You control who you invest with and what deals you get into, and what markets you work in. But Jill and Rich Lux, they are actually my wife's aunt and uncle, so my aunt and uncle-in-law. And having family invest with you is probably I'd say one of the biggest honors, right? There's a level of trust involved there. And obviously from our standpoint, very serious dealing with family members' investment capital. So Jill and Rich, they actually invested in our first two apartment deals. Those first deals that I showed you on the slide earlier. And they put 75,000 into each one. So they put 75 into one and 75 into the other. And we sold both those properties. So we've gone full cycle and returned investor capital plus profit and the whole 9 yards. And you can see there is the payout that they received. So invested 75 and 75 for 150, and then received 274, including the 150. So that was the total payout. So you could say their 150 grew to $274,000 over that 4-year period or so. So pretty handsome return. 82% return on investment over 4 years, 20% returned annually, and and they've since reinvested. So they're actually one of our more loyal investors. I think they're in just about every one of our multifamily investment deals, and yeah, they love it, right? They were one of the first family members to jump in and invest their money for a real estate return. Like I mentioned before, the multifamily is going to return that 15, 16, upwards 20% annualized returns. So that's Jill and Rich, and yeah, they're just great folks, and enjoying their retirement years as real estate investors. So, all right, let's look at the schedule again. So, yeah, you read through some of the titles here, and I get super pumped because I know exactly what we're going to talk about. Next week, we're going to dive into the fundamental reasons why real estate works the way it works, why the investment creates the returns. Okay. We're going to review the high level of, hey, if you're going to invest X dollars, well, what fundamentals and what technical items occur such that you get X plus % return, right? And so it's going to be really, really good. We're going to move on from there the following week and talk about multifamily and triple net lease industrial investing, the basics around that. We're going to talk about mortgage note investing. And then the final webinars is we'll work together to understand how to, if you wanted to dive into real estate investing, how can we put together a 10-year plan? Okay. A 10-year plan for success, what that might look like. Okay. Based on, hey, here's how much money I'm looking to invest today, and here's how often I'm looking to invest, and things like that. So it's going to be pretty powerful. It's going to be really powerful. So with that, again, my goal today was to get us excited to create a framework and a foundation on the potential for the investment vehicle, what it can do for your portfolio using some real numbers, making some comparisons to other investment vehicles, things that you might be familiar with today, especially if you're excited about jumping into real estate investing here in the not too distant future. So with that, I'm done with the presentation, and I would love to take any questions that we've got out there about anything we got. You can unmute yourself, or you can type it into the chat, or we can call it a night.
Hey, Adam, it's Ron.
Ron.
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, man. Good.
Hey, so a couple of questions. So, my wife and I are Ramsey people, and you may have heard of Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
Recently achieved baby step 7 in February this year.
Good.
Definitely not interested in leveraging debt. So I'd really like to understand your perspective on um so we already own one income property. It's a single family home.
Oh, very good.
Um and we own, obviously we're debt free, so we own our own home.
Hmm.
And we're looking for additional investment opportunities, but we don't want to leverage debt to do it.
Yeah,
So I'd really be interested in your perspectives on that, as far as how best to start that process, maybe with a single or the multifamily approach.
yeah.
And then I'm very interested to understand the transparency model with regard to investing. And I for a lack of better terms, like the crowdsourcing type of investing
Hmm.
that happens as a part of that process, right? So how do they really share in that information from a business perspective? And what's your confidence in that? I mean, and I understand that you're a proponent of this, but what's the real confidence level with regard to transparency on that model? That would be very interesting to me. So maybe you could share some perspectives on that.
Sure, sure. So first and foremost, yeah, you're not alone on the debt thing. I think the cool thing, about the investing that we do, as far as getting involved as a passive investor. So like when I invest as a silent passive investor in a multifamily apartment community, certainly I'm not going out and borrowing money for that. Like I'm not obtaining my own debt for that type of investment, right? And so that's the nice thing about some of these passive investing structures is, it's the entity that gets the debt. So it's going to be the LLC that buys the apartment community that I am investing in that obtains the debt, not me personally, right? Um, Same goes for the mortgage note investing, right? Now that's a totally different type of investment vehicle, but you're actually the owner of you're the lender in that case, right? So you're not borrowing money, you're not taking on debt to obtain the investment, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And that actually led me to a second question, which was what does that default rate look like? So what's your risk related to that mortgage note investment strategy versus the return?
Yeah, actually the mortgage notes tends to be even safer than some of the real estate investments because it's backed by a first position lien on like a house, right? So if the borrower does default, then I mean it sometimes turns into a better investment because I get their house. Now that's we'll dive into a lot of that during the webinar on mortgage note investing. But just know there are plenty of ways to continue building your real estate portfolio without obtaining leverage or debt or other people's money to do so. Makes sense?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
my ultimate goal, I mean, we're doing pretty well with regard to traditional investments, right? And I'm giving us about 13 to 15 years. 13 would be my ideal number to retirement. Okay. And a part of that strategy would be cash flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a big part of the strategy. And it
Mm-hmm.
needs to be, right? Because you can't always count on the markets to behave the way we think they should behave, right?
Absolutely.
So so my thing is how do I diversify my portfolio with cash flow in mind, specifically in real estate, because it's a great approach to that. And so I'm looking for ways to do that, but not all, but be able to do it incrementally year over year in pieces. So it's very difficult to say, yeah, I'm going to go buy a single family home every year. That's almost unattainable to start out with, even when you own the first one, right? And you're rolling.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, how do you do that year over year incrementally to get cash flow gains to be able to kind of create your wealth snowball? I'll do the inverse of that, right? To create that snowball.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the single family world, if you were to operate, I would say solely in that space, trying to obtain, say, as many single family homes as you could, just to create an example, it would be very difficult to do that without using debt. That'd be tough, right? Because I agree with you. I wouldn't even be able to have the ability to go out and buy, $300,000 rent home every year without going to the bank and asking for, a loan. So, but the good news is we're not relegated. We're not relegated to that type of investing, right? And I actually think, Ron, you're going to love. I know, I understand your position, and it's, hey, cut down the debt free, only, live off of that. I think you're going to love the mortgage note concept. I really do. And again, you're not taking on debt to buy the investment. You're becoming the bank, and it's a very high cash flowing investment vehicle.
I'm very interested to learn more about that. I appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. And hey, to touch on your second question back there about transparency, on the group purchases. So you use the term crowdfunding. Yeah, crowdfunding, syndication, group purchase, everybody throwing their money into the pot for the down payment, so to speak. Yeah, there is. So essentially what Ron's referring to, everybody, is the multifamily, like in multifamily apartments, right? Investors, everybody throws their money together to buy a deal. And they usually give their money to like a lead investor. I would be the lead investor and everybody would give me their money and I'd go do the deal. So, one of the ultimate precautions in that investment space, really the make or break, is the trust relationship, right? It's, of course there's legal documents and there's all sorts of things that you sign that establish the investing relationship. But at the end of the day, when I invest in those type of deals with other people, and I'm turning over my hard-earned money to those folks to manage it in an apartment community, it's, it's based on trust, relationship, and a built up relationship with that person or that team, because they've got my funds, right? And so for that reason, Ron, I only get into deals with people that I know really well. I know how they operate. I've seen that they send out monthly financial reports and have a established operating rhythm, because there's no other option really. It's really a trust relationship. And you want to make sure there's an established operating rhythm of reporting and that kind of thing when you get into those type of investments. And we're absolutely going to dive into all that for sure.
Could I ask one more question? And it's
Yeah,
related to it's related to buy and flip versus hold,
sure.
especially in today's market with the interest rates the way they are, and the craziness of some of the market trends we've seen in the last couple of years, especially with cash, your cash purchases unseen. It's driven the market into a crazy position to some regard, and with some regard.
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen that play out in your investment strategies, and how has that played into your portfolio, and what risks have you encountered with regard to that, and how have you mitigated that?
I'll say we mitigate that at a very, very high, I'll call it macroeconomic level. We only focus on investments that are located in areas that are definitely growing, definitely bringing businesses where people are moving to, that have high population and high job growth. Because if you have that type of supply demand arrangement, a lot of your other problems go away. Now that doesn't mean, you still have to be sensitive, and you still have to, buy at the right price and follow, your technical underwriting and make sure you're smart about, who's managing it and all that. There's definitely, I'll call it little micro technical details that cannot be ignored. But I would say by and large, the thing that's kept us, I'd say, in safe investments, especially in the multifamily space, the past several years, is we just prioritize the location based on those fundamentals. It's got to have high population growth. It's got to have high job growth, it has to be a landlord friendly state. Like I have to be able to evict somebody in 20 days. Right. And so we mitigate a lot of headaches through just that initial, foundational decision making on the market. Does that answer it?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely gives me some perspective there. Thank you.
You bet. Jimmy asks, are we going to share the recording? I absolutely will share the recording. You bet. No doubt. Any other questions?
Hey, Adam, this is Will here. And
Hey, Will, what's up, man?
hey, thank you for inviting us. So what would you say to those who would want to be a real estate investor but don't have the amount of cash they would want to have to just start playing with? What advice would you give them, and where you what would you tell them?
From my perspective, there's a spot for everybody. There's all sorts of techniques on buying real estate with, very little money. There's ways to participate in deal making without even taking ownership of the real estate and getting a cut of the transaction. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can get involved. Maybe you and I can talk offline about a few of those ways. I'd love to share some of my input on that. But just to kind of give a quick example, and we've done some of this in the past. You can put real estate under contract. You could put a single family home under contract to purchase and then sell the contract to another real estate investor. We used to do that quite a bit here in Texas. When single family homes started getting more and more expensive, we would get under contract to buy a rent house and then, realize maybe it needed more work than we initially anticipated, or, maybe the timing wasn't right. And then we would take that contract and mark it up $10,000 and sell it to another real estate investor and say, hey, I've got this piece of real estate under contract. Do you want to buy the contract from me for 10 grand? And if it meets their investment criteria and they can make the numbers work, they will. So that's just that technique's called wholesaling. But it's one of several things that you can do with little or no capital.
Yes, I heard about that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. We got a minute. Any final thoughts, questions?
Hey, Adam, it's Jordan. I'll jump in with one here before we break.
Jordan, what's going on, man? Long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. Thanks for doing this. This is awesome. This is really
Yeah.
excited about the series.
Yeah.
Hey, so I was just curious to get your thoughts on kind of diversification, right? So like I mentioned to you when we were kind of messaging back and forth, right? We're just kind of getting, I'd say, one foot into real estate at this point. Still continuing through all the other traditional investment means as well. And so, real estate, right? Ultimately, the goal is financial freedom, and hopefully financial freedom before a traditional retirement age, right? So I'm kind of curious just how you think about that, and how you and Emily approached that in your early days of real estate investing. Did you continue through traditional means, or did you go all in on real estate from the beginning? And is your focus now really just on real estate, but now it sounds like trying to diversify your portfolio through different types of real estate holdings? Just curious your thoughts on that.
No, it's a great question. So yeah, I did participate in, let's call it more traditional investing means. Back when I was with GE, had the 401k, invested that, traditionally, and then some stuff on the side. But when we jumped into real estate in 2013, it was more or less a full switch, like pretty much right away. It took time, obviously, to get things kind of going, but yeah, the mindset perspective was a full switch, and it was, okay, well, we're done doing that type of investing. Now we're going to focus on real estate, just 100%. And so 100% of our investable funds started going towards real estate, at that time. And, we did that. Like I said, we did the single family thing for about 5 years. The goal was always for me, I still held a W-2 job up until 2017. The goal for me was to join Emily full time Emily had been doing real estate full time starting in 2013, and so we knew, you use the term financial freedom, right? We knew that we needed to cover the expenses. I mean, that's usually the first bogey, is to cover the expenses. You may not replace your income necessarily, but cover the expenses. And so that was really our goal. And I'll be honest with you. We had been investing in real estate. By the time I joined Emily full-time, we'd been investing in real estate about 5 years or so. Yep, 5 years. And I was so bought into it. I was so committed to the model and had kind of proven to myself that, hey, we can do this, that we did our first multifamily deal. And that covered, I'm going to say, probably about 80% of our lifestyle expenses, pay the bills type thing.
Yeah.
And that was it. Like it was, hey, now's the time to do it. It's not 100%. It's not perfect. And I definitely didn't like cover my entire salary at work, but it was, hey, we're probably not going to move back in with mom and dad. We've proven that we can do this. And so it was kind of like jumping from one cliff to another without falling down into the crevasse. Right. And so that's how we did it. And it worked, right? It worked for us.
That's awesome. No, very good. Thank you. One other just kind of thought on that, and somewhat related, right, with that full switch, is that with a traditional 401k type investment, right, you defer a lot of taxes, right? The one downside that I feel right now, because I haven't gotten into the world of 1031 exchanges or anything like that, right? But the one downside that I feel in my investments today is more on taxes, right? I take depreciation, which offsets some of them, but I'm still paying a lot of money in taxes. So is that, and I mean, I guess that's the blessing and the curse of a good investment, right? But, do you have any slots in this series where you're planning to talk about any different types of tax strategies? I know we're already over time and that's more than a 30-second answer probably, but is that anywhere in the agenda?
Yeah, I'm going to touch on it actually as kind of an introductory next week when we talk about the technical fundamentals of real estate investing, because to your point, tax depreciation is a cornerstone to the real estate investment. And then we're going to build upon it during the multifamily webinar because, multifamily and commercial, because those type of investments allow us to accelerate the depreciation and front load it, as opposed to a single family rent house, where you kind of take depreciation every year for the 27.5-year time frame. Multifamily and the commercial side, we do what's called a cost segregation study. And we write off 20, 25, sometimes 30% of the investment's value. We write that off in the first year of ownership. And so everybody who's invested gets a huge paper loss in the first year that they can use to offset their other income sources. So yes, answer your question. We are going to dive into that.
Awesome. That'd be great. Cool. Thank you.
You bet. All right. Well, this has been great, folks. Again, I am super grateful for everybody taking time out of their evening. I know this is definitely family time. And so get back to that. Please, if you come up with a question afterwards or throughout the week and you don't want to write it down on a Post-it note, you want just go ahead and email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat here, and just feel free to shoot it to me. I'm happy to help throughout the week too. But we'll see everybody next Wednesday, same time, same place. And I'll make sure that another link goes out for everybody to sign up so we can all participate. So thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks for being generous with your time and your information.
Likewise. Thanks for being here, guys.